on Chicago Catholic League football. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and like us on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can also find us on X at Varsity Voices 1, Instagram at _Varsity Voices, and Facebook at the Varsity Voices Chicago Catholic League football. We're also on YouTube at the Varsity Voices. If you have any comments, want to weigh in on anything, be sure to leave us a comment where you're listening at. You can email us at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. I'm Joe Frevoletti, one of your hosts, and here with me is your other host, Dan Frevoletti. We're continuing today with our preseason special episodes of From the Coach's Office, and this time we had a chance to sit down with head football coach at DePaul Prep, Mike Passarella. Dan, Coach Passarella, I think he said he's now going into year 6 of his tenure at DePaul, and you get the sense after talking with him that this is a program that is on the rise or is trending up and possibly ready to go to the next level this coming season.
Yeah, different than some of the other programs. Not that they're trending down, but just from a numbers perspective, they are one of the ones that has seen kind of a dramatic increase. I think he'll touch on it in the interview, but yeah, I think I opened with that. Why does they seem like a team on the rise? So they are. I think they're poised for a bit of a breakout. They've had one in basketball. They've got the high profile coach and Coach Kleinschmidt and. I think they are really close to having a similar type of breakout in football. So, interesting conversation. Coach is really upbeat. You could tell he's excited. He feels it. That what people are talking about with the team on the rise. So, I think it should be fun for the listeners.
Yeah, it will be. He touches on a lot of different points, like you just mentioned about the overall program, the players, what he's doing, the upcoming season and the games. So I think we'll find it interesting. So why don't we get right to it?
All right.
Well, welcome to the Varsity Voices. We have another special edition of From the Coach's Office. This week, we have the head coach of the DePaul Prep Rams, Michael Passarella. Coach, welcome to the virtual studio.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on today and looking forward to chatting some ball in CCL.
Awesome. Well, sometimes, there's a feeling that schools that there are schools, with their pro football program on the rise. I get that feeling about DePaul Prep. Why do you think that is?
So I'm going into year 6 right now. When I started, we had 450 kids in the building, and I had about 48 kids total in the program for 2 levels. Going into year 6, we're going to top out at 1,400 kids in the building, and our program right now numbers are going to be at 175. So. Our trajectory is on the upswing. A lot of private schools are kind of going the other direction, and we're going the right way. We're the only private Catholic co-ed school on the Northwest Side, so we kind of have a nice little niche that we can go ahead and fight for some student bodies and student athletes and academic students that are trending us in the right way. So that's positive, and it doesn't help when your basketball team is coached by Tom Kleinschmidt, winning back-to-back state championships. So that kind of puts you on the map. So it kind of helps me out with where we're at in the program, and we're really heading in the right way where everybody wants to be.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Coach, I saw pictures of your campus and your new stadium. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 4 years old now, but it looks like an incredible facility. Would love to visit there and watch a game there someday. How much of a game changer has that been in attracting students and players to your program?
That's kind of been one of our biggest selling points. My first year here, we were still at the old Gordon campus. We were DePaul Prep, so we're still kind of fighting that Gordon Tech piece of it. And Gordon, obviously, due to finances, had to shut down. And we kind of came in, our administration and our president does a great job and renamed it DePaul. We do have a relationship with DePaul University, so that kind of helps with a lot of different things. with attracting students because we have the ability to have high school students take college courses. But my first year when we were at Gordon, we practiced at Horner Park, so we had the bus it to practice every day. We're in a park, and it's kind of hard to sell a kid when you're out there practicing on grass that's not really grass. It's more like dirt and gravel. Yeah. And random people are walking through the park with their dogs, and they're just kind of doing their business right in the middle of our practice. So that was a deterrence, and kind of coming here in this new building, we took over DeVry University and Chamberlain School of Business, Chamberlain School of Nursing that's right behind Lane Tech. Brand new campus. It's beautiful. The field itself is right smack dab down Rockwell, right across the street from Roscoe Village. So that's kind of been a really neat thing. I think one of the biggest things is it's such a community place because people who have zero affiliation either with Gordon Tech or DePaul still want to walk down Roscoe and just come check out a game on a Friday night. So you get this atmosphere that's really different with the whole entire community, with where most of our student body comes from. And so with that said, I coached high school ball for 2 years in Texas. I was in Austin. I was right in the middle of Lake Travis and Westlake, two perennial powerhouses, not only in the state of Texas, but in the country. And I asked my wife, she came to our first home game here on a new campus and in our stadium. I said, what was the atmosphere like? Why don't you compare it to my time at St. Michael? She goes, look, Texas is a different animal. She goes, but the feeling that you have here, because it's not a very big stadium, it can seat a solid 2,000 people, but it's more compact. So you get this atmosphere and this feeling in this small school at the time when we had about 700 students, and the atmosphere was through the roof. She goes, the atmosphere, the feelings, the people that were there, and the positive energy that everybody brought from the community, and then in a student body, she said, was something that was pretty awesome. And you really get that feeling here on campus with the skyline in the background. I mean, it's a really neat setup of what we got going on here.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out. Yeah,
check it out.
Yeah. Coach, I'm finding that one of the more interesting topics with coaches as we have these discussions is the summer schedule. You said you're in year 6. How much has your summer schedule changed over the course of your time, and how much do you dedicate maybe to weight room versus on-field stuff?
It's a great question. It's ever evolving. Every year it's kind of changing. And a piece of that is things that are within my control, and some of it's not. This past year, we actually started a little bit later, but what ended up happening, it was the first year that we ended school earlier. Normally we go a week or two into June, so we actually ended school at the end of May, that last week of Memorial Day. So, you have to try and find a balance where you can have kids have a bit of a summer. Like, I want my kids to be high school students, right? Go hang out, go socialize, go on family vacations. That's going to be an uphill battle that you're always going to fight. Basketball is really heavy in June. Baseball is really heavy on weekends. So you're trying to figure out ways. I really push multi-sport athletes, tell my guys, go be a high school kid, go compete, go socialize with your friends. So you're trying to work through all these different avenues that are going to give you hoops and hurdles that you have to try and work through. So year to year, it's very different. So this year I said, I'm going to give you guys 3 weeks off before we kind of, lace them up a little bit and get going. We had the weight room was open, so we really concentrated on that. 2 years ago, I really evolved my weight training. I'm trying to kind of go into this new sense of having kids, the mental health aspect, and not burning them out. What I noticed 3 years ago, I want to say, we really went really heavy and pushed the summer with contact, and we were thudding up pretty good. We wanted to become better football players because I think that was the piece that we were really missing was we had bodies, we had numbers. 60% of our kids probably had never played tackle football before. They come from either flag or they lace, get a helmet and shoulder pads for the first time as a freshman. So you're trying to work through that obstacle. So we kind of pushed it, and the season rolls around, and by week 5 or 6, you're banged up. I mean, 10 to 15% of our guys were hurt, and then talking about some big injuries. So I had to figure out, like, hey, what's important? What's important is making sure that they're in a weight room. A lot of strength training, getting stronger, a lot of prehab stuff to making sure that they're healthy. You want to maintain speed, so a lot of those different things. So I evolved our summer where we do a week. We shut it down for the week of the 4th of July. That's kind of a campus thing where everybody's going. Give people time to be able to go on vacations that week, and then we hit it pretty hard for the next 3 weeks. But right now, we go Monday through Friday. In July, Friday is helmets only, a lot of team building stuff. So you want to try and get kids more active, continue to build up that team culture, because I've learned high school is a lot harder to change the culture than college is. So kind of working through a lot of that stuff. So a lot of different things that go into the summer. At the end of the day, the most important thing is if you can install your playbook and you find time to do that. With 25 contact days, I never use all of them. I get to maybe 20 to 22 max over the summer. But we take our time with installing and making sure guys know where they need to be, and we try and compete against other teams once or twice a week as much as we can.
Great. Yeah, so Coach, I saw, I was looking at your profile, and I saw that you used to be a scouting analyst for the Cleveland Browns. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, so what it might be my dream job, but maybe you would point me in another direction. But what was that like, and has that experience influenced you in any way as far as coaching is concerned?
So I was a scouting analyst for 4 years with Cleveland. It was the job I had before I came here to DePaul. My first 2 years I was part-time because I was still the offensive coordinator at College DePaul. And I did it for 2 years full-time. If you would have asked me 30 years ago what my dream job was, it would have been to be a general manager in the NFL. And after my experience at Cleveland, I quickly learned, I'm like, I do not want to be in personnel whatsoever. That experience was a lot of film breakdown, a lot of sitting, a lot of reports. And I learned that I really enjoy being hands-on. I like being able to coach guys up. I love the relationship part of things. I love the X's and O's. Did I learn a lot with Cleveland? Absolutely. I mean, I was evaluating every single draft class from 2016 to 2019. So I was watching all those guys that were going to draft. So I was basically like the intern to the scouts. So it's kind of breaking down the films, evaluating all for them for the guys that go on the road. You get to pick up a lot of different things. So there are things. Obviously, the NFL's, high-end college, the NFL are very different with what you do schematically. But you try and figure out things that people do differently. So I was able to kind of take my playbook and tweak it a little bit with different things that I saw that I really liked, that I can simplify for a high school kid where I don't have to make it complex. So I think that was that piece of it. I think the biggest thing that I learned in my 4 years is how to project talent. And that helps with recruiting, right, with college coaches coming through to be able to recruit guys. I'm like, look, here's where this kid's at. He's 17 right now. Here's his frame. One of the big questions I asked my boss, who was the director of scouting in Cleveland, I said, how can we tell when I'm writing these scouting reports to project what a guy's going to be? He's like, what you got to do is you got to figure out what are they going to be like in 4 years, right? So for the NFL is a matter of that second contract. And then for a college guy is, hey, what's this 18-year-old who's going to graduate? What's he going to look like by the time he's going to be an impact player for us? And for me at the high school level, it's, hey, here's a 13-year-old incoming 8th grader, a rising freshman, and what are they going to look like by the time they're a junior? So I got a really good idea in the sense of, hey, here are the pieces that I can do. So it kind of gives me a heads up and advancement. High school's different, right? I mean, we're transitioning to 3-4 defensively because trying to find 4D linemen's hard. I've been an even guy my entire career, and I'm like, I can find 3 guys that can go ahead and do a really good job because we're pretty long this year. I'm like, hey, I got guys that can go ahead and take advantage of this. So it gives you those abilities in the offseason to kind of give me an idea of what do we want to do, what do we want to base out of, what's our philosophy. So it really helped me prepare from that standpoint. I mean, that was some of the biggest things that's really important in terms of preparation going into the season.
Great.
Coach, we talked a little bit early on about being a program on the rise, and a lot of that has to do with players, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you returned some great pieces from last year's team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I saw last year's all-conference team included offensive lineman Dominic Blitz, great name, by the way, quarterback, wide receiver combo, Juju Rodriguez and Braden Peavy. What can you tell us about those players and your expectations for this year?
Yeah, I mean, going into year 6, in the past, every year we were always young. So that was that piece of it, right? We were always playing a lot of sophomores, a lot of juniors, and, you had to kind of develop it. So this is the year where we have a really large rising senior class. I got about 40 to 45 kids that are seniors in the program. And out of those, we got 4 or 5 guys that are going to be 3-year starters, and we're going to be very senior heavy. But the thing is that we have a really good junior group that's right behind them. So that's kind of that piece of, I don't like to use the term recruiting because that's not kind of what you do. You build a relationship with people. So we try to identify, hey, who doesn't want to go CPS? Here's what we have to offer. Here's who we are as a private school. So, you kind of identify who those guys are to bring them in. So our numbers are really going up. But in terms of what we got with these seniors and what we're returning, I mean, if Juju's 6'2" or 6'3", he's a Power 5 quarterback, right? And he was all conference last year. He's going to be a 3-year starter for us. He went through his sophomore bumps that a sophomore's going to go through as a varsity quarterback in the Chicago Catholic League. But I mean, I have a guy out there right now who, he's an offensive coordinator because that's how cerebral he is. So having probably, in my opinion, one of the more dominant offensive linemen in Dom Bitts. Again, he's going to be a 3-year starter, and if he's 6'2", he's Power 5, but he's 5'11". So, you have these guys that have really worked hard in the weight room, and this is the first group of kids that I have that do private training on their own, and they're football kids, right? They're football kids first that do other stuff. So that's kind of been that big changer. We got Braden Peavy, who's back, who's an electric wide receiver on the outside. Defensively, I mean, I think offensively, we looked at it. We're returning 7 starters. 3 of those guys are going to be 3-year starters out of 7. The kids who are filling in those 4 other spots are going to be guys that played a bit last year, didn't start, but they rotated in. Defensively, we're bringing back 8 guys. So for us, looking at it from what we're bringing back and where we're at, I mean, I couldn't be more excited. The schedule doesn't give us any favors because every single week it's a grind. But every year, you saw the numbers in wins kind of go up by either 1 or 2, right? We hovered at 2-7, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. But the thing is, my first year, we were getting running clock. We were getting blown out. Year 2, it's all right, we're competitive. Year 3, it's halftime, we're in the game, and we just didn't know how to finish. And last year was the point where, hey, we win one more football game, we're in the playoffs, and we're there. We knocked off Fenwick. We should have beat Providence. We hit them on the ropes. That was a game that we kind of lost ourselves. So you learn with these guys, with the experience they're getting and where they're at. They're learning how to come out on top and start it off out the gate, and they're learning how to finish games. So we have a lot more experience in terms of kids who have played youth football that have the experience coming up. So those are all things that are going to really help us take things, hopefully, this fall to the next level. I mean, we haven't been to playoffs in a while, and that's our goal.
That's great. So I was reading some of the articles written about your program over the last couple of years, Coach. And some of the things you mentioned in those, you talked about the progress your team has made, and you were just talking about that here. And you were to a point now where they now needed to take the next step and learn how to win, I think is what you might have said. Do you feel like you're turning the corner on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we turned that corner last year, right? We were in some dog fights, and we won a couple, we lost a couple. I mean, it's a coin flip, right? You got to play the game of football. There's someone on the other side that's trying to do the same thing. We're all high school kids, right? And coaches are all coaches. We all do the same things, whether it's minor changes and differences in philosophies and schemes, right? But at the end of the day, 16, 17-year-old kids have to go out and compete. So I think last year we had that signature win against Fenwick. We went to double overtime with them. That's that point where we learned how to buckle up and finish a game on the right note. So that's that piece that I think we really finally hit. I think big picture, like if we had a chance to beat De La Salle to try and get into the playoffs, so we were right there on the cusp. And the biggest thing, as much as you preach it, right, you tell the guys, hey, we have to concentrate on the next one. You say 1 week at a time, and the kids get kind of big-eyed. Like I know what happened against De La Salle, so we kind of have to put all these small pieces together in terms of not overlooking opponents, not looking to the next week, not looking to the playoffs is taking our time. So, like I said before, I mean, I took this job and I anticipated maybe a 2-year, maybe 3-year turnaround, and I'm sitting here going into year 6 where I'm like, okay, I think we're finally at the cusp of being able to do this, and we saw that last year. So it's been a lot slower than you anticipate, but it's high school football. I don't have my guys year-round. A lot of our guys go play basketball, they go wrestle, they go do other stuff. So you're trying to change this culture, in season and in the out of season, and have kids buy into the weight room and buy into speed training and buy into heck taking care of themselves, right? Getting the right amount of sleep, eating healthy, hydrating, right? All these different things. So I think in terms of where we're at this year, and the one comment that's been made collectively from our staff is this is the first summer where we've really seen some true collaboration between our guys. I think in years past, we've always kind of puffed our chest and ran our mouths a little bit. I think a little bit too much, where we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves on the field. I always like a little bit of nastiness and aggression. I think the guys, hey, be a competitor. Go ahead and have some fun out there, but you have to learn how to wheel it in and how to control your emotions. And I think those are the things that going into this year with this group, this is going to be one of the first groups that I truly was able to bring in that I've known since about 7th grade, 8th grade. So I have those relationships. You kind of lay down those expectations and who we are as a program and where we want to be and who we want to identify as. So you kind of see it trickling down now, not just from coaches to the upperclassmen, but from the upperclassmen all the way down to the lower levels.
Excellent. Well, you'd mentioned your schedule, Coach, and some of the games you had last year, Fenwick and Providence, and it looks completely different this year, right? I don't know. I think it's the first schedule I reviewed where other than your opening opponent, Deerfield, it's like completely different. Now you switch divisions, so some of that is expected, but if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, but when DePaul Prep was Gordon Tech, was Lane Tech the big rival? Is that the historical rival so who would you see as kind of your schedules change and develop over time and your program is changing and growing, but who does DePaul, if you ask the students, not necessarily you or maybe the coaching staff, maybe you have, eyes on Loyola, but who do you think the student body would see as the rivals?
That's an easy one. It's going to be St. Ignatius.
Okay.
So it's I mean, in terms of where our location is, being on the northwest side and kind of where we pull our clientele from, obviously, we have to compete against CPS, right? So Lane Tech, Peyton, those are going to be the big CPS schools that we're going to lose kids to, which I understand. I mean, great academics, and you can go ahead and take care of your business there with the schools. We compete quite a bit with St. Pat's and Notre Dame, so we'll lose kids there. And then we're going to you go north of us, you get Loyola, you go south, you get Ignatius. But a lot of our kids from the grammar schools, those private grammar schools we get, it's either DePaul or Ignatius. So everybody knows each other. They're already begging me to go ahead and try and schedule Ignatius. I hope Matt Miller doesn't hear this, to schedule them week 1 for the next 2 years for a home and home. But the hardest thing with the evolving 2-year deal with the CCL, and it was only 1 year last year because of St. Francis and IC coming in and trying to figure out some parity across the board for all 24 teams. We bumped up. We were the number 3 team in the red, and we beat Fenwick and say, congratulations, you're number 1 in the purple now. We were supposed to be, I think, in like the white or something like that, like a couple more higher. But you can't go more than one group up every 2 years. So they said, congratulations, you're number 1 team in the purple. Now you get Loyola. So I'm like, oh, fantastic, let's go. But I think if you were to ask anybody in, heck, even if it's not even a football player, you ask anybody in the student body in this community here at DePaul, it's going to be Ignatius.
Great answer. Well, I learned something. That seeing where you're at, I looked at all these schedules in schools, and it's like, they're usually right down the street from one another, and you guys on obviously opposite sides of town. So that's an interesting one, and I can't wait to follow that as the years go by.
Yeah, a little north side versus south side action.
I like it. I like it a lot.
We had to cross over with them. I believe it was a couple years ago. So we had a home and home with them. If I'm not mistaken, it was like the year after COVID. So it would have been 21, 22. Mm-hmm. So we had them on the schedule. And now my guys are begging me to get Iggy for the next since week 1's going to be open next year for us with Deerfield. But the hardest part is, I got guys who reach out that we're not in the same conference and not overlapping. And it's like it's hard for us to schedule, not knowing what the next round of schedule is going to look like with the groupings, right? So you got to be patient, let that kind of play out, and then if you don't cross over and they want to do it like St. Pat's and Notre Dame, big rivalry up on the northwest side,
sure,
they're hooking up week 1 because they don't cross over and they want to play. So those are all things you have to kind of be patient with.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about you've got your three returning all-conference players from last year, and I know how important that is to your team. You know, who else are we going to be talking about, Coach? You know, as you go through the season here, who's gonna kind of step up in your mind and be kind of that some of those next all conference stars from your team?
So we kind of talk about those offensive guys. We're replacing an all-conference running back with probably one of our most dynamic athletes in Nick Martinez at running back. He backed up our all-conference kid from last year, but we also moved him around at slot receiver just because he's so electric. So he's going to be someone to really pay attention offensively because he's a kid that can really take it to the house every time he touches the ball. He's that elusive and that quick. Defensively, I've got a free safety he's not very big, but he's got a big heart. He's going to be a 3-year starter for us, and you can tell when he's off the field of the communication and how things become a little bit more complicated because he's our legitimate field general out there that calls everything and makes checks. So he's a kid that's going to really do some things. And then I got 2 inside linebackers. Not many guys can say this, but I'm pretty blessed. Inside, I got a 6'4", 230-pound Mike linebacker, and I got a 6'3", 215-pound Will linebacker. So we're pretty good there. And my Mike linebacker is Jet Reese, and he's actually my first Division I offer that I've had since I've been here. So he picked up an offer at a camp from some FCS schools, and he's got a bunch more schools looking at him, and he looks the part. He's very smart, so he can get everything done from that Mike and being a leader there with the box. And he can thump and he can run. So he kind of checks all the boxes on what college they're looking for next level. And, he played for us last year and started. He dealt with some injuries, got rolled up on in a game, and he had to miss about 4 games. So he's be a big key for us defensively. My Will linebacker, Aiden Costet, he's going to really be a dynamite. He's a really smart kid. So we're looking at high academic Ivy League type schools for him. And then I've got a sophomore defensive tackle who we brought up, and I just gave him the varsity jersey earlier this week, so he had a big smile. But he's a 6'3", 260-pound defensive tackle who's an absolute behemoth. His dad was a heavyweight wrestler at Wisconsin, and that's Hunter Watola. He's going to be a guy to keep an eye on for the next 3 years because he's really going to be special. So, I can sit here and talk for about half an hour with more guys. I think we kind of hit it. It's kind of going out and trying to identify guys to come in. I've got a really good sophomore group that we're bringing up about 3 sophomores to play for us. They're going to play, and we're going to be pretty deep on varsity. But I think one of the great things is that when your numbers start to go up and the talent starts to go up, you create this level of competition. And that's one thing that we haven't had before. Guys kind of were set in their ways. They knew who they were. They know where they're going to be at. But now we got guys that are nipping at other guys' heels and pushing for playing time and pushing for opportunities and pushing for starting jobs. And this is the first year that we have this that we haven't had in the past. So that's kind of been something. It's been fun. It's also frustrating because I'd love to play everybody, right? You kind of want to get guys out there and you're trying to find ways to sprinkle them in on special teams and how you can rotate them in to give them experience because it's football. It's a violent game. Guys are going to get banged up. Guys are going to get hurt. So guys have to be able to step on the field and be prepped to play. But I think that's something different that we have some of these guys that are dudes now that we've kind of discussed, some of these all-conference guys that are returning, some of these other guys that I view that we're on the cusp of being all-conference, but you're only allotted so many, and they're taking strides. But other guys are working their tails off in the offseason and making themselves better to really try and get out and compete and take playing time. So it's been a neat experience for me as a high school head coach and being in this kind of as a first.
Yeah. Coach, I want to thank you for your time. And this is the last question I have. I don't know if Joe will have another one, but you talked about numbers and you did a lot of great explanation for us as far as finishing third in the division last year, but moving up and now being one of the bigger teams. You mentioned 45 seniors. What's the rest of the number breakdown? I'm interested, really freshman wise, where you're at and where you're seeing how much growth you're seeing year over year.
Well, we've got our largest freshman class. I think we're sitting right at 60, 61 kids at the freshman level. We got about 55 sophomores. Our junior class right now is our lowest. I think we're sitting around 30, hovering right around 30 kids, the junior class, and we got about 45 seniors. So we're in a good spot. I mean, we do everything you need to do. You try and build these relationships. You go out. We have our open houses. It helps us that there's a feeder program that plays their games on our field. So, a team where we get probably 20, 25 guys every year. They play on our field, so they have access, and they kind of know who we are because we're here on Sundays, either scheming and game planning and walk outside, say hi to parents and talk and whatnot. And you get that ability. So it's been good for us to help us with those numbers. And we're kind of been in a good spot with where we're going academically. We're trying to compete with, Lane and Peyton on the CPS side. You're trying to compete academically with Loyola and Ignatius. And our testing scores are really going in the right direction. We're sending kids, East Coast to West Coast, everything from Harvard all the way to Stanford, kind of everything in between. So when you do that, people are going to come look at you. And they want to see what you have to offer. So it's been easy for us. The school and the facilities, everything kind of sells itself. The last thing we got to do is win more football games, and that'll kind of be the final nail in the coffin that kind of take us to the next level.
Yeah, so I just have one more question, last question for you, Coach. So a year from now, we're sitting down again for another interview. What do you hope we're talking about as far as your program is concerned, and how things will have gone for you this year?
Well, obviously, the first goal, we kind of talk about what our ultimate goal is, and that's always winning a state championship, right? You always want to be at the top. You got to try in hindsight to teach the kids. You got to take it one day at a time, and goal number one is just getting to the playoffs. And if we get into the playoffs, then anything kind of happens. So a year from now, I'm hoping that we kind of got this broken streak of not being in the playoffs, which I think we're going into 11 years now. Where DePaul Gordon hadn't been to the playoffs. I think last year, it was 2015, so I think we're going into year 9. So I'm hoping you're talking about a team that's been able to break that streak and went to the playoffs, and I'm hoping we can sit here and say defending state champs and most likely 4A/5A, however that kind of shakes out. So that's the goal and that's the ambition. I'll say, in terms of where we're at, with what we're returning, I got this, some cohesiveness on the staff on both sides of the ball. So that's kind of been a rolling piece, right? I haven't lost many guys, so we're bringing back a bunch of guys. In the past, it was always new schemes, new OCs, new DCs. So you're trying to reteach everything, but now we have some commonality in what's going on. And I mean, the first meeting we had this summer, kids remembered everything, and it was kind of, you hit the ground running, and you're further advanced on June 24th than we've ever been, and we're further advanced this year. So I'm hoping we can say we're bringing back a bunch of guys, we're defending state champs, and we're going to try and repeat. That's what I hope the conversation is.
All right, that's great. Yeah.
Always really good goals. It's been a great conversation, Coach. I really want to thank you for your time. We want to thank Coach Michael Passarella of DePaul Prep for joining us today. Coach Passarella, we appreciate your support of the Varsity Voices. Wish you the best of luck on the upcoming season, and have a great day.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me, and best luck with the
Another
podcast.
good interview, Dan,
listening.
with
Awesome.
one of the coaches
Thank you.
from
Thanks,
the Chicago Catholic League. He's we mentioned this before the actual interview, but sounds like a program that's definitely trending up, right? And I think after listening to Coach Passarella there, you can see why we get that feeling, right, after talking to him. So I think other people will get that as well. He's got, he's got a handle on all of the particulars, all of the details, right? And, but the underlying message, I think, in everything that he talks about is he feels like they're ready to take that next step, right? And that's the playoffs, right? That's what they're there for.
Yeah, and he's the ambitious goals, right? That's the takeaway. Listening to it again, asking what he would like to be talking about next year. State championship, no hiding, no running from it, no incremental jumps. I think that they feel like they're in a good position for the first time, probably during his tenure, and he's not running from it at all. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. This division, the more I talk to the coaches, the more interesting it gets, and I see, like when we talked about Bennett, you look at 5 wins, but go ahead and shatter that, right? They feel free to go 7-2 or 8-1 or 9-0 even, and they prepare to win every week. So it'll be a fun year in this division, and I think DePaul is definitely going to be a program of note.
Yeah, me too. And, the other thing I like about it is, he's open, honest, straightforward about, the things that the program has done, the school has supported him in as far as, what he needs to get to that next level, right? So talks about the facilities, talks about, getting out and talking to the feeder programs, and getting their numbers up. So he's doing all the right things.
Yeah, it takes work. It's you can't hope. Hope isn't a strategy. So they are actually doing, and like you said, making sure that they are doing the right things. Hosting youth teams is always a really good thing for success on the high school level. Those kids know the coaches, know the facilities. Already coming in as freshmen, it's very comfortable for them. So that's one thing I heard that lets me know, 20 to 25 from one program, that is a great foundation for your high school team.
Right. And the numbers, what did he say? 60, 65 freshman level, another, 50 or so at the sophomore level. And even his down numbers, as the juniors, they're still 30 juniors in the program. So he's doing something right there.
Yeah. Yep. You can see it. You can hear it for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, another good interview with one of the coaches from the Chicago Catholic League. I'll be interested to follow them throughout the season, and we'll be talking about them obviously throughout the season. So another exciting team to follow coming up and see how they do with their schedule and with their season this year.
Yep, there's a bunch.
Yep, there are. So that's it for this special episode of From the Coach's Office. And again, thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in for our next episode where we will be bringing you another preseason edition of From the Coach's Office. Subscribe, follow, or like us wherever you're listening from. Don't forget we're on X at @varsity_voices1, Instagram at @the_varsity voices, Facebook at the Varsity Voices, Catholic League Football, and YouTube. You can also email us, varsityvoices312@gmail.com. Make sure you come back and listen in to our next episode.